I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the creator of the universe, the creator of all universes, that which we are unaware of also. And He is the originator of everything. He is the one who brings into existence everything that does not exist. He is the one who substantiates and enables things to exist, and He creates everything with absolute perfection. There is no imperfection in the creation of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a perfect being. He is beautiful, He is magnificent. He is a creator where one can never comprehend. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam tells us that every description you give of Allah is not Allah. For that is your description, for that is something that you have seen Him through the eyes of relative entity, and that is not Allah. Allah is absolute. And inshallah today I'd like to spend some time discussing this issue with regards to the belief in God. What does it mean? How do we define God? How do we know He is there? It's essential for us to know this, because when you look at all religions, whether we are young, old, whether we are Muslims or non-Muslims, the factor of knowing our origin and who created us and how we came into being is fundamental to all our actions thereafter. Meaning our moral system, that which we consider to be good and bad, evil, and that which is innocuous and we say it's okay, etc., is all subject to our belief in our origin and where we are going. So it's essential that we understand it, and especially considering the fact that we are under a trial. And inshallah I will describe that this evening, inshallah. There are many subjects to cover. Nonetheless, I think fundamentally though, it's essential that we establish some firm grounds to understand where we are coming from. And then when we get into the higher levels of discussion from the spiritual perspective, things begin to make more sense and they become more grounded, as one says. And that's essential when it comes to any kinds of dialogue or discussion for that matter. On that note, I say to you, my respected sisters and brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, as I said yesterday with regards to my subject, which I covered, a very generic subject yesterday, but nonetheless, let me summarize it for those of us who are not here. The basic element that I covered yesterday was with regards to the appreciation of this great creation Allah has put us under. It's very essential that we utilize these entities, the faculties given to us, i.e. the faculty of mind, our ability to see, etc., and to acknowledge the wonderful society that we live in. Whether we are Muslims or non-Muslims, the beauty of our existence is that we're able to use universal languages, signs of certain general terms such as love, hate, etc., which allows us to come to a central platform. We can have a discussion on those, and we can begin to expound and find ourselves truly who we are and where we're going. It's very essential to understand that, for at that core level, if man can simply tap into that level and understand their differences, we begin to become very social creatures, a very amiable kind of a person, because the society begins to like us, and we begin to like the society. All of these discussions pivot around the idea of certain philosophical areas, and that fundamental one is what we call happiness. When you study philosophy, you see that the central term that all philosophers are trying to achieve is how does that creature who is trying to establish himself or herself in this vast universe, how can he or she be happy? Everyone is trying to be happy. There is nothing more important to any human being than happiness. Whether we are rich or poor, it's irrelevant. We like the wealth. We like to be wealthy. The reason is because we think that in wealth we will be happy. We don't like poverty because we know in poverty there is unhappiness. So thus we aspire to the material world thinking it's going to give us happiness. So when we examine human behavior, it's central that we all want to be happy. So in these discussions, When I look at the crowd, alhamdulillah, today I'm able to see you. Yesterday I was kind of speaking in the dark. That I see a variety of ages of young brothers and young sisters, as well as older brothers and sisters. Especially when I look at my younger brothers, you know, the ones who are just newly introduced into this world. The world is a very dynamic place. Everything is sort of exploding on their faces with all the bright colors and all the excitement in the electronics, etc., etc. They're beginning to realize that where does my happiness lie? Is it in the way I dress, or should I wear my hat backwards or forward, or my earrings are in the right place, or how about my mohawk? You know, is the color correct, or does it glow properly in the dark, etc., etc.? Is that going to give me happiness? And when we begin to examine that, at the level that we have to discuss, at the core level as human beings, if we do not examine at this discussion level, we will never be happy. It'll be impossible. You know, as a person who has gone through this life, living in the West, in America, where the material pursuits just are overwhelming, and I can't imagine what's happening today in school, for I think it's accelerated even more, and you begin to see that where are we going with all this chasing our own tail business, and we find that really we are going into a spiral in a society where there is so much anger in the community that in New York City, for example, you walk on the street, you dare look at somebody in their face or their eyes, you know. In the city of New York, where there's high tension level, somebody looks at you and says, "What are you looking at?" You say, well, it just happens to be that you made eye contact, but no, you don't. You look down, you know, you don't give eye contact because then you are examining me, or there's a problem with you, or suddenly punches start and the gun whips out, etc., etc. You never know. Why is a human being living at that level? It's because we have not tapped into that treasure of pleasure that we have in our hearts, which Allah has planted. And if we don't tap into it properly, what happens is we move away from that central point of happiness. And as a result, the resulting factor is anger, tension, anxiety. And as a result, we kill ourselves. Either we kill others, we kill ourselves with anxiety, and we live a life of total sadness on a continual level. And as a result, what happens is that we become an anathema. We become a curse on society. We become the burden on everybody else. That the minute you get near somebody, you are a problem. So let's examine on a very generic level. I know there are people in this crowd who are non-Muslims. There are those who belong to different schools of thought. So sometimes these discussions can veer in different directions. And I like this. It's very essential that we have that. For when we tap into different ideas, each one of us can come forward and question the integrity of what is being said. And that's very, very essential. So let us recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah tells us in Surah Al-Mulk, which I started, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He it is who created death and life to test which of you is best in deeds. الَّذِي, it's referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ. He created death and life, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, to test you, which of you is best in deeds. So there is no question from the Quranic perspective that my existence and your existence and that all of mankind's existence is under a trial. We have been created to be tried. So we are under an examination, the Quran says. The Quran mentions this statement many times. You ask a Christian, brethren, why are you here? That's a fundamental question we all need to ask.